Welcome to Range World, the podcast where life, development, leadership, growth, intentionality, and experience come into balance right before your very ears. And now, here's your tour guide into Range World, the president of Get Life in Balance, Rain Kansman.
Okay, welcome back to Rain's World, and today I have Laila Lakani Ali. Did I say that right?
You sure did.
All right. And she's going to talk a little bit about a real interesting topic, but let me introduce you. She's an innovative and passionate executive with extensive experience leading both strategy and commercial execution in billion-dollar organizations. After her master's from the London School of Economics and MBA from Duke University, she started a career in strategy consulting and most recently worked with the Boston Consulting Group. That's a good group. In 2009, Cisco recruited Laila into a small, newly founded strategy team that was tasked with a big job, taking the market leader from then a $27 billion company to its aspirations of being a $50 billion corporation, right? In her subsequent 12 years with Cisco, Laila had many high impact roles, from pure play strategy roles, tried to say that right, to transformation roles, from mergers and acquisitions to most recently being the market vice president of sales for the Western United States. Laila's most recent endeavor after Cisco was as senior vice president of sales for the $4 billion less than truckload business unit of XPO Logistics. Laila resides in Florida with her husband and two daughters, aged 11 and 6. That's great. Being a compassionate and passionate leader and being a super mom of two of her favorite jobs. And she enjoys telling fellow leaders how possibly they can cohesively thrive. I love that, being life in balance, right?
I love that thought.
Welcome, Laila.
I'm a big believer. Thank you.
That's so cool. So today you wanted to talk about passion and compassion. So tell me about the difference between passion and compassion and why you picked them.
So I picked them because they are, I think, such an integral part of being a wonderful leader. And they're also unique. They're not common characteristics you find in the best leaders or people who are renowned as the best leaders out there today. And I think it's a little bit of a missing piece, that the leaders that show this have great gravity amongst their people. And I think it's such a fundamentally important part of leadership, not just today, but leadership as it goes forward. So to me, compassion, it's, you know, I almost, when you first asked me this question, I said genuine care. Okay. You know, what's the most important characteristic of a leader? Genuine care. And to me, that's what compassion is. It's that care that leads you to have a purpose for your organization. And that purpose isn't around, you know, making money, but it's around caring for your people and caring for your customers, and how all of that comes together might lead to a lot of profitability, but it starts with that care and that concern. And then on the passionate side, you know, I'll give a story of a boss I had who made a really big mark on me. And he made the word compelling be almost a different word than people had come to get to know. And the reason he did that is he had such a passion for that word. He said, you know, we aim to do a good job at things. We aim to do a great job at things. But what if we aim to be compelling? And what does compelling mean? And it sets the bar so much higher. And he made an organization as large as Cisco talk about the word compelling on a regular basis, where suddenly that's what we were aspiring to be. So to me, the word passion really kind of boils down to that. It wasn't a new word he made up, but he had such a passion for that level of excellence and that drive and energy that leads to that, that to me, that passion translated to all of us. And that's the passion that I'm speaking of.
Well, and I could see it in you as you delivered that passion's still there. And on the compassion side, you're speaking my language. I always believed as a leader if I really took care of the people, they would take care of the numbers.
Oh,
And
100%.
yeah.
But it gets lost in the shuffle sometimes, and all too often, I find.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let me ask another question. How would one gain these qualities?
It's an excellent question. And I pondered on something like that quite a bit, because you almost believe that somebody will either have it or not have it. But I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think there are people who are naturally compassionate people that when they become senior leaders, that gets lost. And it's unfortunate. And I heard a beautiful quote today that really resonated with me. It said, we're all so busy trying to be perfect that we forget that what connects us is that we're all human. And so on the compassion side, I think what evokes that is just connecting as human beings, not as a senior leader and someone working beneath them, but just as human beings. And I think what bridges that gap in levels sometimes, especially because when you become a senior leader, folks tell you what you want to hear, and folks tell you what the perfect rosy world looks like. They're not vulnerable to the pain points. They're not vulnerable to, what could be better, because that's not what they imagine a senior leader wants to hear. But what brings that out is your own vulnerability. So I find that if I speak to people and am vulnerable about my journey, about things that have nothing to do with a specific topic that we're talking about in the business. But if I'm vulnerable about my own journey, if I'm vulnerable about my own skills, oh, I'm really great at this, but oh, this is a skill that I see in you and I really love it because I'm aspiring to be like it. Now I've become vulnerable and shared an area that I'm not strong at. Suddenly somebody starts to trust you more. You become more real to them. You become more human to them. And then I find many times that later on, from a work standpoint, that trust translates into them sharing things and being able to share not just the things that are going great, but the things that are not going so great, so you can collaborate together. So to me, compassion starts with that point of vulnerability and connecting as human beings. And then I think we all have a natural, compass for that comes out. But for it to come out, you have to stop trying to be so perfect. On the passion side, I will say that I think, to me, being passionate is being inspired and being able to inspire. And that combination of being inspired and being able to inspire is what I translate to passion. So, to be able to be inspired, you have to lean into your strengths. I find that, it's very easy to say, I'm not good at this. Let me take on a role that, fills that void. Right. Instead, find what you're awesome at, find what you're wonderful at, and lean right into it. Or take any role that you're in and approach it with your strength. And suddenly you'll find that all the areas that you maybe aren't so great at fall right into place, and you find that spark. And it's not just a job you're doing, you're passionate about it because you've naturally leaned into your strength to be able to tackle whatever problem, whatever issue that you're doing. And then inspiring others almost as an offshoot of that. If you're not passionate, inspiring others to be passionate about fill in the blank thing that you're doing is so difficult. So I did write down a couple of tips on, how to inspire others, because I think it's part being inspired.
Okay.
I think it's part communicating with purpose and making sure that whatever you're communicating, that there's a purpose to it, and you can wrap a human element around that. And communicating with that excitement and emotion and not the task at hand. So being compelling, in other words. Right. And then it's part being a person that people want to run through walls for. So, and it's that connectivity piece I talked about. If people don't know you in any real way, they're not going to want to run through walls for you. And Simon Sinek is one of my favorite motivational speakers. And I read something recently that he said, certain leaders inspire people to do what you pay them for. And other leaders, that I'm paraphrasing, inspire people to do a tremendous amount more than what you paid them for. And so to me, that's what I'm talking about, of running through walls for you. And they'll do that, not for the job, but for you as a leader.
Yeah. Wow. So much good stuff in there. So a couple of things that resonated with me. I mean, several things did, but a couple of things I want to talk a little bit about the passion. You're right. I'm more inspired when I'm doing something that's inspiring to me. And so finding that for people, you know, within your team, you know, well, what would really get you going, right? The other one that the other thing that's interesting to me is I am a Simon fan, and also hearing the word vulnerability and Brené Brown, and for me is a newer word that's kind of come out, but we've seen leaders before that were vulnerable. And you're right. Those were the leaders, Laila, that I would run through walls for. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We have one more question.
Lay it on me.
Besides running through walls, what benefits would leaders receive by having passion and compassion?
I think it makes you stand out in a way that people don't understand and fully appreciate sometimes. We live in a world that is very social media oriented, and life is, you know, you show your life through these perfect images and perfect clips and words that display you. And so it's a mantra that's kind of become normalized. And we live in a world that's hyper competitive. So by the time you get to a senior leadership position, you've fought hard to get there. And now showing vulnerability or showing weakness or showing that you don't have it all figured out, it makes it seem like you didn't deserve to get to that spot that you're in. And it's difficult for people. So what do people get out of being that way, of showcasing that vulnerability? First of all, I think you're a rarity. And you don't always appreciate how valuable that rare combination of compassion and passion is in leadership. Until you are vulnerable enough to try it, to risk it. It is a risky, dangerous feeling to be that way. And then when you do, the skies open up, right? You are set apart from your peers as a leader because of it. You will find that your organization and your people stay because of you. They don't stay because of the job, they stay because of you. And they're inspired and find greater meaning in their work because of that. And ultimately, from an organization perspective, those folks are delivering far more to your organization than they would have been if they didn't have a leader who was passionate or compassionate. So I think, honestly, there's a financial element to it. There's a people and human element to it. And then there's a, you know, how do you be an incredible leader element to it that I don't know that people always have figured out the recipe for.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I think maybe brought up in a household that was that way. My mom was an incredible individual and beyond her time. And I learned heart from her. And so the human side of this speaks volumes to me. I mean, that's just the way I wanted to be a peer as a leader. But I like the economical thing, especially today, Laila, with how hard it is to hold and keep people. That retention piece, I think, is a huge benefit. And one last piece so going way back, tying into this vulnerability, a crude way of it, but Dwight D. Eisenhower, one of my favorite quotes by him is, "You don't lead people by hitting them over the head. That's assault." And so, you know, even though it was, you know, maybe turning the edge from our medieval bringing up or how we were doing that, there was somebody here who was a general, a president, you know, that kind of supposed to be, that was talking about the human side of things. And you brought it in boatloads for us today.
I'll tell you, Rain, my husband's executive recruiter, and he works at kind of the senior most levels. And he always tells me that, you know, the catchword of today is emotional intelligence, right?
Right.
So, and I almost feel like I kind of strayed away from those set of words because it's almost become cachet to say it now. But I think it's deeper than that. It's not just, you know, EQ in a commonized way that people say it. But I think it's so fundamental. He tells me all the time that by the time somebody comes on my docket to interview them for a senior most role, they already have the intelligence. I don't have to look for that. Every one of these candidates that I talk to have it. what makes me decide which one is worth putting forward is the one that has that emotional side. And that's just the rarity. And typically he'll talk to dozens of people and boil it down to one or two based on that. And so it's just so fundamental as a leader going forward that I find that it's absolutely necessary. And I'll tell you, my favorite quote is a Maya Angelou quote.
Oh.
I know she's one of those stupendous thinkers and has such a way with words. But I'm going to paraphrase here as well. But it's not about, people won't remember what you said, people won't remember what you did, but people will always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And so to me, it comes down to that.
Oh man, that's perfect. That's that's a big part of my presentations. I love that quote too. And I loved having you on today, Laila. Thank you so much for what you added to this program.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, Rain. Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a great day down there in sunny Florida.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This has been another leadership lesson from Rain's World. If this kind of learning whets your appetite, leaving you wanting for another helping of this kind of content, visit me at getlifeinbalance.com.